Welcome to Nursing the Future's masterclass on the state of nursing in Canada. The panel you're about to hear lead our major nursing organizations, and they will outline their perspectives on the current and future states of nursing. I'm so pleased to welcome our panel. Dr. Valerie Gurdissa is the Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Nurses Association and brings over 30 years of diverse experience across public, private, not-for-profit, and senior government roles. Valerie has worked in Alberta and Ontario and served in various capacities in 11 of the 13 provinces and territories, including the federal government. Her RN journey career started in 1991 at the Children's Hospital of Michigan, and then she started her NP journey at Stony Brook University in 1998, practicing as an NP, serving children and youth, educating NPs and creating both provincial and national NP workforce optimization strategies before transitioning into executive leadership roles across different parts of the healthcare system. CNA and NTF recently committed to a formal partnership and look forward to working collaboratively to ensure newly graduated nurses and all who work alongside them are supported in optimizing their journey to professional practice for decades to come. Tiffany McEwen is the past president of the Canadian Nursing Students Association, having served as president from March 2024 to February 2025. Tiffany graduated from St. Lawrence College in Kingston, Ontario, with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing with honors in December of 2024 and currently works as a registered nurse in the emergency department of her local hospital. She has a passion for critical care nursing, as well as health promotion and preventative care, which stems from her prior experience on a family health team. Tiffany has been instrumental in promoting NTF on the national stage and remains involved in creating a position statement on the importance of new nursing graduate support and mentorship during the early transition to professional practice. Linda Silas has been the president of the 250,000 strong Canadian Federation of Nurses Unions since 2003. As the dynamic and charismatic leader of Canada's largest nurses organization, Linda is recognized as the foremost advocate on behalf of nurses in Canada. Starting her tenure as a full-time labor activist and a single mom of a 13-year-old son, these events have shaped Linda in a very distinctive way. Linda has earned a reputation for being a caring listener who is focused and solution-oriented in everything that she does. A proud New Brunswicker, Linda credits her home province for both her impressive work ethic and her well-known zest for life and adventure. Linda has fine-tuned her skills as a union leader at the local, provincial, national, and international levels over the course of 2 decades. She's a passionate speaker whose straight talking in both official languages inspires nurses and earns the respect of policymakers and stakeholders. Linda's favorite public speaking engagements are always for students, as she believes that mentoring the next generation of activists is an important responsibility we all share. And speaking of students, Dr. Jean Daniel Jacob is the Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Schools of Nursing. He oversees the association's activities, leading CAS in fulfilling its mission to promote high-quality nursing education in Canada in the interest of healthier Canadians. Dr. Jacob is a full professor at the School of Nursing, Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Ottawa. Dr. Jacob holds a doctoral degree in nursing from the University of Ottawa and has extensive experience as an educator and administrator. His scholarship interests primarily focus on psychiatric nursing and forensic psychiatry. His substantial background in nursing, education, research, and leadership at the university is complemented by his nonprofit leadership experience as former chair of community organization aimed at defending the rights of people living with mental illness. Leah Bill is a traditional practitioner who applies an integrated approach to practice, combining Indigenous knowledge with nursing knowledge. Leah has worked as a frontline nurse in First Nations communities for over 30 years and serves as executive director of the Alberta First Nations Information Governance Centre an organization whose mandate is to promote, protect, and advance the First Nations ownership, control, access, and possession, or OCAP, principles, and protect the inherent right to self-determination and jurisdiction in research and information management. This role has provided Leah with extensive engagement, leadership, and management experience in research with First Nations communities across all treaty areas in Alberta. She has also been an Indigenous advisor and Indigenous knowledge holder for several national health organizations. Moreover, she has extensive training in facilitation and dispute mediation. Leah is currently the president of the Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association, which serves as the national voice for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis nurses across Canada. Leah has co-authored publications in the areas of health services research and health provider education, including barriers and facilitators to health services, using decolonizing theories and qualitative methodologies. Leah is a co-investigator with the Alberta First Nations Information Governance Centre on a $500,000 emergency department project and is a principal investigator on an Indigenous Healthy Life Trajectories initiative in partnership with the University of Alberta. In addition, Leah provides oversight, training, and guides partnerships between communities and researchers to apply appropriate qualitative methodologies to address the needs, priorities, and values of First Nations people. And finally, Dr. Leah Chapman is committed to advancing the nursing profession in Canada to ensure equitable access to quality care. As our Chief Nursing Officer for Canada, Dr. Chapman provides strategic advice to Health Canada, plays a convening role on key nursing issues, and represents the federal government at public forums. Lee is a registered nurse who received her PhD from the University of Toronto's Lawrence S. Bloomberg Faculty of Nursing. And over the past 20 years, she's gained a deep understanding of nursing by working in both frontline and clinical leadership capacities. In addition to her role as CNO for Canada, Lee continues to work at a community-based consumption and treatment site in Toronto, where she provides harm reduction services and frontline care. I thank you so much to our panelists for taking the time to share their vision with us today. So, having introduced the speakers, now each panelist will offer a short presentation followed by a facilitated panel dialogue about the future state of nursing in Canada. Valerie is starting, and I'll put the slides up. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I did an acknowledgement of the land from which this masterclass series is being recorded. As a settler in Kamloops, British Columbia, proud to be a settler in Kamloops, I acknowledge the tradition of the Kamloops to Secwepemc Nation and the unceded territory within the Secwepemcúlecw, where I live and work as a guest. I thank my Indigenous family for allowing me to learn, teach, and enjoy the wonders of their territories, and I acknowledge the presence of our Secwepemc ancestors who have and continue to care for the lands, waters, and animals. May they be proud witnesses of our ongoing journey of reconciliation. Thank you, Valerie. Go ahead and take it away.
Great. So thanks so much for the introductions, Judy. And I'm just going to put my timer on to make sure I'm one of the people that stays on track here. Okay, so I think many of you know that CNA has actually been an organization since 1908. And actually, funny enough, many of the organizations here in their early iterations before they were established as independent corporate entities were part of the CNA umbrella, including CFNU, CASN, and CNSA. And we collaborate all the time with CINA, including currently with some of our work related to anti-Indigenous racism. And as we all know, Lee, as the Chief Nursing Officer of Canada, is always pulling us together to move forward the profession. This is our strategic plan, and these are things that guide our future, and we're actually developing a new one starting this year, so please get involved in that work effort. I couldn't not really state more clearly how critically important it is that we are now collaborating with NTF to reach new graduate nurses and early career nurses, and to better understand what they need from all of the different nursing collaborators and ensuring that we are helping them along their professional journey. So again, Judy, thank you for your leadership across the nation. I think it's so critical that we really highlight our power. Now, this is based on Chi-High data, but if we are even close to these numbers and we then think of adding in our incredible student body, we are actually at 500,000 voices representing regulated nurses and students. And it's critical that we come together and use this power, especially during these unprecedented times where we need to make sure that we have one voice about what matters to Canadians and to our profession. This is really the framework that guides everything we do and actually guides every step taken within CNA that moves us towards achieving our current state goals, but truly actually influencing the future of the profession. So I'm sure all of you have seen these domains throughout your career policy practice, which includes the clinical, research, leadership, and education. And as a profession, we actually need to have all of these domains to be successful. It's based on our education, it's based on our career goals and growth, and it's based on our lifelong learning and continuing education where we can actually demonstrate, say, through research, the evidence that actually demonstrates the value and impact of the profession. So what we're doing currently is to actually influence our future. So in policy, we do a lot of advocacy, and we also have, decades of experience influencing nursing policy. And currently we have policy briefs and position statements that we actually push up to decision makers and or we use to inform the entire profession. At a practice level, we obviously have tons of different efforts around advancing practice, and we have this large network of Canadian Network of Nursing Specialties, over 40 specialties in the nation, to make sure that we do not lose the critical value of expertise in nursing in different specialty areas or for different population groups. We also have just recently established a code of ethics where it will be out for publication within the coming month, and that guides and drives the philosophical and ethical underpinnings of our profession. We work with partners and organizations across the nation. We have a program called Stellar Certification, and it's a workplace excellence program that's being launched because we know that we do have significant issues and variation in terms of organizational effectiveness and achieving its goals around making sure its people are well supported and work in safe environments where they have the right and correct workload. So this is some of the work we're doing to actually influence the future. In our research domain, we have different journals, Canadian Nurse, we have publications within the Canadian Journal of Nursing Leadership, and we are trying to influence our future and to guide those discussions. And we have several research initiatives underway to continue to inform the profession, and a significant one right now through the CIHR grant system is anti-racism research study, and the results will be coming out later this year. Through leadership, we recognize nurses that have made profound impacts within the nation, and then we ensure we bring them together to continue to influence our future, and that's the Canadian Academy of Nursing. Right now, there's 147 fellows within the Academy. And we also have a program because what we've seen over the generations of nursing is that we don't necessarily have the right level of leadership support for our nurses and the opportunity to grow and gain skills and knowledge. So we have an Inspire Nursing program to influence the future. And then for education, we actually have several initiatives around education and lifelong learning. And the two that are probably most well known are our certification program, where we have over 12,000 nurses certified in specialty areas. And because we want to make sure any education opportunity you are experiencing throughout your career, we have an accreditation program that actually determines the quality of professional development opportunities through standards. So that's kind of how we're informing the future. I'm sure you've seen the advocacy we do, and often we try to find our swim lane and make sure we're complementing and or filling gaps in relation to the organizations here today to make sure that we don't step on their toes and that we do just lift up and amplify their efforts around all of the domains of nursing. I've mentioned the journal, and it's so critically important that we continue to make sure nursing leadership is at the forefront around decision making, especially when it comes to organizational excellence. and that we actually we actually create and publish our own literature around what needs to happen in all of the different organizational environments across the continuum of care and into other sectors as well. One of the things that we're focusing on in the future, because sometimes we are, described almost in the media as a trade, and we are not a trade. We are a profession based on a body of knowledge that differentiates us. We need to make sure that decision makers understand our expertise, the depth of our expertise, and what we are trying to move forward in terms of, providing out value and achieving better outcomes. Just wanted to do a shout out for Nursing Week, and this is where we're demonstrating that power we have to transform health. And so in my final sort of reflection, what we believe needs to happen in the near future and what nurses needs, there is a huge focus on nursing retention under the leadership of Dr. Chapman. And one of the things we also need to demonstrate, because we cannot just recruit ourselves out of the workforce shortages, we actually have to optimize the existing workforce. So that's something that we're really focused on. Mentioned the Workplace Excellence Program. We support workforce mobility, CNA, because we've heard from over 90% of nurses in a recent survey said that they would like to have better choice about where they work and not have the barriers to move across different jurisdictions. I think we have to keep demonstrating our value. Often we're described as an expenditure. We are an asset to this health system, and we need to have the support of all of the C-level organizations coming together to support that. And obviously, anything we do as a profession is driven by evidence, research, and helps with policy evolution. For the areas we're really focused on at CNA into the future, we have a huge program focused on anti-racism, both for all populations, but then a specific initiative on Indigenous populations. And we are working in collaboration with CINA and other national Indigenous organizations. We know the huge effects of climate change on planetary health and on the healthcare systems. So we've moved forward with a recent position statement on that. And advanced technologies have had major impacts on transformation. So we're working on that work effort with position statement that just was released, and the optimization of data to make decisions related to our profession. And then cost optimization in the future of the publicly funded healthcare system. We are working, and we believe it's critical that the health system decision makers understand our true value and looking at ways to support all nurses to articulate that. So with that in mind, I just want to say, hey, join CNA if you haven't yet. And there's actually discounts for people that attend the NTF sessions. And I want to thank all of you, and happy to pass over to Tiffany.
So my name is Tiffany McEwen. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the past president of the Canadian Nursing Student Association, and I'm a proud new graduate registered nurse. It's my pleasure to speak on behalf of our organization today, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Judy for the invitation. We do collaborate a lot between Nursing the Future and CNSA because, as it stands, nursing students are the future of the nursing workforce, and so I think this is such a critical collaboration for us to have. I just want to start by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you today from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat peoples, which is currently known as Kingston, Ontario. Through the careful and masterful cultivation, stewardship, and protection of these lands by its Indigenous peoples, I have the privilege of learning, living, and playing on these beautiful lands. And I'd like to also recognize my responsibility as a settler in protecting Mother Earth so that many more generations can enjoy the opportunities that I have. So I wanted to just start by talking a little bit about what the CNSA is. So we're the Canadian Nursing Students Association. We've been in operation since 1971, and currently we represent over 20,000 nursing students across the country. We're a bilingual and pan-Canadian organization which exists to advocate for the needs of nursing students and the betterment of the nursing profession. We are partnered with many organizations, including CFNU, CASN, CNA, all of whom are represented in this meeting, as well as many other organizations, which helps to work us towards improving the future of education and the nursing profession. Students often have a unique perspective, just given the sort of experiences that we have going to nursing school, we can sort of see where things start. And we also have a good perspective as a national body or like a national organization because we have students from all over the country. And as we know, healthcare changes from place to place. Things are very different depending on the landscape where you live. So we have an excellent opportunity in that we have students from across the entire country. So I want to talk a little bit about the current challenges we're experiencing because it's important to recognize what the challenges we're currently going through are in order to understand where the future of nursing is headed, and the things that need to change in order for the future of nursing that we hope for to actually happen. But when I say current challenges, I always see challenges as areas of opportunity, areas of growth. So these things, while they are challenging now, just highlight areas in which we can improve. Um, so currently, as I'm sure many of you are aware, we are experiencing a lot of inadequate staffing levels and burnout. Some of these challenges that we have mirror the nursing profession as a whole, but some of them are uniquely student driven as well. But the inadequate staffing levels and burnout of nursing staff present a challenge not only in nursing care areas, but there are some trickle down effects to nursing students. We're experiencing a lack of clinical placement opportunities, a lack of qualified, willing instructors and co assigned nurses. Everyone is tired. They're leaving the profession. There's not enough people left with the capacity to continue taking on groups of students. And so, therefore, we're seeing large groups of clinical students, much larger than one person should be responsible for taking care of. And then we are experiencing as well a lot of horizontal violence. We go into clinical placements and there's just a lot of negative talk. We hear a lot, oh, you're so brave for going into the nursing profession right now. That's the kind of language that I hope to change. And I hope the future of nursing returns to something people are proud of, and not telling us that we're brave or self sacrificing for becoming nurses. We are also seeing large gaps in our Medicare system. Medicare was intended to be, as we all know, a comprehensive system, but it only got part of the way to where it needed to be. So some of those gaps have really caused inequities in care, an inability for nurses to provide holistic care, and a very much curative approach rather than a preventative approach to healthcare. There are also significant differences in education between institutions. This is more of a nursing student challenge, I would say. And it's something that our colleagues over at Kazan especially are working towards rectifying. But different schools do things extremely differently. Students have different numbers of mandated clinical hours, different amounts of time spent in classroom versus lab versus the clinical placement. The hours are split up very differently. The clinical placement opportunities are very different. So it is causing sort of a divide in the nursing education. There's also some question of the safety of working environments, which makes it a very scary sort of environment to come into. As we know, healthcare workers have been experiencing an escalating amount of violence. But we also, that inadequate staffing, those large clinical groups, not enough support, not enough orientation for new grads, those are all contributing to developing unsafe working conditions. And then substance use and mental health care are inadequate, both for our patients and for our healthcare workers themselves. And so it's resulting in a higher burden on the healthcare system, a lot of stigma. And one of the other things that we're seeing specifically here in Ontario, but I'm sure is a problem across the country, is the closure of safe consumption sites for substance use. So all of these things sort of contribute to the current challenges of the healthcare system. So our organization has a number of position and resolution statements. These position and resolution statements are actually developed and presented by our student body, and then it's voted on every year at our national conference during our National Assembly, where a representative from every school in our chapter membership vote on whether or not to pass these position and resolution statements. And you can see that a number of our recent position resolution statements really do address the issues that I talked about on the last slide, a lot of the challenges that we're having. So a call for universal contraception, calls for clinical compensation, Canadian housing crisis as a public health crisis, enhancing undergraduate nursing education for increasing acute care competency, calls for minimum nurse-patient ratios, protection of abortion access, enhancing the new graduate transition and mentorship in nursing, promoting professional development in nursing, the advancement of planetary health in nursing, and prioritizing the safety and wellness of nursing students. So as you can see, these positions are all reflective of the current climate of healthcare, but also the priorities of our nursing students. This is what really matters to them at any given time. So you can see that we're really addressing things like the gaps in Medicare. We're really addressing the safety issues with our working conditions and staffing levels. These are all things that are very much of concern and very much at the forefront of the minds of nursing students. So we have to take some action, and it can be really hard, I think, as students to feel empowered to take action. But students are so powerful. Absolutely incredible advocates and activists I've met over the last year. So our action plan is to continue lobbying governments. We need to participate in rallies, write letters to governments at the national, provincial, and local levels, continue campaigning on social media about the issues that matter to us, amplifying messaging around shared priorities with our national and local partners, engagement in webinars like these so that we can make it known to the world and to the nursing profession and to nursing students what we feel is important. Also, we participate in committees and working groups on initiatives that match these priorities. I know a number of our board of directors students are on different committees that really have to do with the kind of current priorities. So, given all of the things that I've talked about, I just wanted to talk about what we hope that the future of nursing looks like, what we are aiming to see the nursing profession become. So, we want safe minimum nurse to patient ratios implemented on a national scale. BC and Nova Scotia already have legislation, which is absolutely incredible. That's the first step in a lot of really incredible work to be done. But we would love to see this on a national scale. A more comprehensive Medicare system. So that would include dental care, vision care, comprehensive pharma care, and the integration of cultural health practices, such as Indigenous health practices, becoming the norm in our universal healthcare system. This really helps kind of bring us from that curative approach back to a more preventative approach, which was the initial intention of Medicare anyways. Also, the standardization of nursing education. This will improve the quality of nursing education and the preparedness of students to enter the workforce. That way, students aren't feeling like they're on different levels from each other when they start as a new grad, because we all start in the same place as new graduates. So feeling like we're on a level playing field is really important. Safer working conditions. So zero tolerance policies for violence, improving safety measures to protect nurses and healthcare staff, and improving access to mental health care for nurses and our patients. So many of those other things that I've talked about go into this, including the minimum safe nurse to patient ratios. That has a huge impact on safe working conditions, but also making sure that our nurses have access to the help that they need in times of crisis. We see a lot of really heavy things as healthcare providers, and making sure that our nurses are supported is the dream for the future of nursing, right? We want to make sure that people want to be in the profession and that they're supported in doing so. Clinical compensation. So, reducing the financial burden on nursing students so that they can focus more on their studies and less on worrying how they're going to pay their bills. This is a big thing that we've heard a lot from students, that they're so busy working on top of the hours and hours a week that they put into clinical placements, into studying, into doing their assignments, into attending classes, that they feel overwhelmed. They feel like they can't keep up. Pardon me. We actually recently launched a survey in partnership with the Canadian Federation of Nurses Unions, and over 3,500 students responded to the survey, and it had to do with financial security and financial concerns of nursing students. And many reported feeling like they may have to leave nursing school at some point due to financial concerns. And I don't think that that should ever be a concern that they have. So compensating students for their clinical time, and also either making free tuition or waiving some of the tuition for nursing students to make this a more financially feasible career path to choose. Because like Val said, it's a career, it's not a trade, it's a profession. We're highly skilled professionals, and we deserve to be treated that way. And then really importantly, improving mentorship and orientation for new graduates as we leave that transition from nursing students into new graduates, that is the most tumultuous, terrifying time, I think, of our careers. And it would improve the confidence and competence of new graduates, ease transition shock, and just improve the overall healthcare environment if we had increased mentorship and orientation. So that's really where we want to see healthcare go. Like we just want to improve the experience for patients. We want to improve the experience for nurses, and really make our healthcare system or preventative rather than curative. So thank you so much for your time. Merci, miigwech.
Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. What I could say is ditto to everything that Tiffany said. And I hope all of you students out there are quite proud of the progressiveness of where student nurses are pushing us. You know, of resolution on contraceptive, housing, abortion, planetary health, way advanced of most of us as an organization. So in 7 minutes there, put my timer on 7 minutes to tell you everything about how we advocate, we speak up, we defend the working nurses in this country. It's a challenge, but I'll do it. I'd like to acknowledge that Canada's nurses work on the beautiful land of Turtle Island, this part of Turtle Island, and for CFNU, we are situated on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people's land. For me, I'm from the Mi'kmahi people in New Brunswick. Go your slide. For CFNU, as it's been said, we're 250,000 strong. We are in competition with the US in regards to who's the largest nurses union, saying that the RCN, which is the Royal College of Nurses, who has a dual role. Most countries have a dual role, college, association, or triple role, and union. In Canada, it is very separate. And the RCN's at 500,000 members, so we have a ways to go. So as you can see for the colors, we represent every working nurse in the country except Quebec and the territories. The territories, it's really represented by federal government unions. Now, where do we situate? As Judith mentioned, we do a lot of work nationally, a little bit of work internationally, and a lot of work locally. When you have a job in Canada, good or bad, you, in most situations, it comes with a unionization already. When I say good or bad, is for those workers that have had to fight to be unionized, there is a continuous fighting on protecting it. Nurses have been unionized, and you heard Valerie say, once upon a time when the dinosaurs roamed the land, joking here, but it started in the 60s and 70s where nurses committees, nurses bargaining committees that were part of a provincial association separated from the professional association and creating nurses union under Labor Relation Act across every provinces. And that act, that legislation in all the provinces, gives us the right and the authority to speak on working condition, bargain, occupational health and safety, and the workplace issues. Of course, as an organization, we advocate for much more, and I'll get to that. So every workplace that you have, if it's a unionized workplace, and about 90% of the workplace in Canada are unionized, you have representation from the local level, which means even on the unit. So Tiffany's working on the unit right now. There's a union rep associated to that unit, and it goes up to the Global Nurses United, which is our global organization that works in parallel with ICN, the International Council of Nurses. Of course, the ICN's been there, Valerie would be better, it's about 128 years, if not longer. And they represent all nurses around the world. GNU is more specific to nurses unions that exist there. And provincially, I put ONA there, but they're there. So flip the slide, Linda. It's easy, you know, when I go to meetings, it's easy to explain what a nurses union does. It's all about negotiation. It's all about grievances. It's all about representing you if you do something wrong in front of your college or your employer. It's all about occupational health and safety. And it's all about making sure that we have a better world. And that we don't do it alone. We do it with all the partners that are around this table, but all the partners in civil society also, on how do we make a better world. And some of the examples are there. If I look at contracts, every time I speak to students, and I love it, especially in the days where we did it all face to face, they want to know, how much will I make? A nursing job after a baccalaureate or NRLPNs and licensed practical nurses are one of the highest paid right after the entry. Not many workers get out and get the salaries nurses get. Our problem is there's not much difference from the starting rate to the end rate. Some provinces are doing a lot better than that. So if I look here, if you go on our website, you'll be able to say the highest starting rate is in British Columbia at $41.21. That's the starting rate. And the lowest is in Quebec at 28.12. So you see the big difference. That's all about bargaining, but it's also about how governments in the past have valued the nursing workforce. When I look at the N rate can be up to another $30 an hour. Or if you work evening, night shifts, that can be an extra 13. So there's a lot to unbundle there. I gave a class almost on all of that, but I'll ask you just to go look at it. When we talk about research, there's one thing that I learned when I moved to Ottawa in 2003, that I had to base all my policies on evidence. You know, in the good old days, we'd gather a group of nurses. What are we lobbying for? And that would be it. Now we lobby it on evidence. So I partner with many PhDs across the country to say, okay, we have a problem here. How can we develop a solutions? And these are the solutions. And our focus is really on what nurses do, which is nursing. When I talk about our focus, is about you and your work. And we have to stay very focused. People say, how are you so successful, Linda? Simple. We stay focused. We focus on the frontline nurses and move forward. Today, the reality is we have a shortage, either a shortage of bodies of nursing or a shortage of bodies of nurses who do not want to work under this condition. When you have about 54% of our working workforce that are working full-time, that's a problem. We should have it at 70%. So why is a 35-year-old nurse or 40-year-old nurse says, I cannot handle 35 hours a week? That is a big red flag, and we're all working on that. Early careers. You know, you heard Tiffany just say, people say, oh, you dare go into nursing, you're brave going into nursing. We need to turn that around. Like, nursing needs to be, and healthcare jobs needs to be the best jobs in our communities. And we're working, again, hard on that. Student survey, Tiffany already talked about it. It is clear they're struggling both physically, professionally, and mentally. So how do we bring a mental wellness? How do we bring a proud professional aspect? And how do we bring them financially successful? The recommendations to this survey, Tiffany mentioned, it's all about compensation and mentorship. It's simple. If it's good enough for other, you don't want to be called a trades, but residency. Doctors are not a trade, they're paid. A plumber is a trade, they're paid for all their apprenticeship. How come we're not doing the same thing in nursing? No more 24-hour shift. We just did that report 2 years ago. It's simple. We are killing people. But the problem here is nurses can be their worst enemy. If we don't start saying no, we will continue. And nurses are addicted to the overtime. And it is not only breaking them, but breaking our system. I won't go through the recommendation, but they're all on our website. Nurse-patient ratio. Why are we doing nurse-patient ratio, and why is it a priority at every bargaining table? It is simple. It is a question about the respect of our work. You're not just there because you have a baccalaureate or you have a degree in nursing or you have a PhD. You're there for your knowledge and your know-how. And it is important that we respect the workforce and we respect the time you need to do your jobs. And it is based on evidence. The more patients nurses have, the more patients die, and they die quicker and they stay longer in the hospital, and the quicker nurses leave. So we really have to focus more on it. More on nurse patient ratio. I'm quitting. Agency nurses, so proud. My province yesterday just had to announce, and they had to be forced to announce, to cut contracts with agency nurses. We work with Dr. Joan Olmos from Queen's University on this paper, which highlighted that $1.5 billion just in the last year is going to be spent on agency nurses. Those are not good jobs in your community. That's not a retention model. That is a for-profit. That's privatizing our profession. We need to move on it. Saying all of this, we do know nursing, nurses and nursing is changing. When I entered nursing, I wanted a full-time job to make sure I'd be able to get an apartment and buy a car. And guess what? Oh, I should start thinking about my pension. Nowadays, we're hearing different on why they enter nursing and what they want out of their workplace, what they want out of their profession. So we're working with Dr. Kim McMillan from Ottawa U, who is working with a big team across Canada to look at what is the modern nurse? What will we recommend at bargaining table? What will we present to premiers and ministers of health on how to retain and attract nurses? So that report's coming out June, July. Now, this is ONA, the largest nursing union in Canada. They have 68,000 members now. And that's one of their slogans. We are not an option, we're a necessity. We really have to stop that image of the hearts and the angels of mercies. We are a smart, tough, intelligent healthcare professional. And the more we repeat it, that we are a necessity and stop all the fuss, the more people will believe it. So I'll finish off here, but I'll invite all the students to our convention the first week of June. And the theme is All In. And we're going to be doing the first day on behalf of working nurses. We're going to do an apologies for all the wrongs we've done to Indigenous people through eternity. But mostly we're also going to do a pledge on how we pledge to do better. So that will be on the first day. The second day will be a big international panel on AI in healthcare. You know, all the great things that AI is offering, but a few red flags. And of course, we'll have business days and everything else. Now remember, for students, it's free. So if you're in the Niagara Falls region, just drop in and come and see us. Merci, Miigwech.
Oui, bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everyone. My name is Jean-Daniel Jacob, and I am the Executive Director for the Canadian Associations of Schools of Nursing. So the Canadian Associations of Schools of Nursing, who we are, we're a nonprofit organization that represents baccalaureate graduate education in Canada. And really our goal here is to promote high quality nursing education. Just as a preface, I do come to you from what is known as Ottawa, which is on the unceded territory of the Algonquin people. And as a national organization, I think it's important to understand that we operate on the land across Canada. And on this land, we find First Nation, Métis, and Inuit that have derived and developed deep and varied knowledge and medicinal systems. And I think it's important that we talk about this and recognize that over time that systemic racism and colonialism embedded in Western academia has led nursing education to largely discount and exclude traditional knowledge, land-based learning, oral tradition, and lived experiences from considerations as valid and empirical ways of knowing, teaching, and learning. As an organization, I think it's important that CASN takes this position and strives to enable all knowledges and experiences to inform the advancement of nursing education. So when I was asked to take part in this talk, thinking about the future, I think one of the first thing that I went to was our strategic priorities. So before I came in as the executive director, the Canadian Associations of Schools of Nursing as an organization set out a strategic plan, and that this is what guides what we are looking to do as an organization for the next foreseeable future. And I have to say, when I'm listening to the previous colleagues talking, and especially Tiffany, I find there's a lot of resonance in the work that is being conducted. So hopefully we are trying to address common challenges and find some constructive ways to deal with these challenges, to make sure that we provide better care, that we reorganize the way that we think about nursing education to better educate current nurses as well as future nurses. So when we look at our strategic plan, we have some key strategic areas, and the first one has been the championing of indigenization, equity, diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and anti-racism, not only in the way that we see curriculums in nursing, but also in the way that we operate as organizations. We're looking also at the different pathways to become a nurse, and how we can think of different educational structures, or addressing some of our current educational structures, the barriers, to make sure that we are producing the future generation of nurses that are required for the current healthcare structure. And I've heard this in other presentations as well. The idea of standing united as a united voice in nursing. Here I'm focusing mostly on the idea of nursing educators. So thinking about how can we as CASN work with all other schools across Canada to be able to have this united voice. And I'll be able to get into some detail on some of these as well. Again, maybe talked a little bit by some of our colleagues, the idea of transition to practice, and that's going to be one of the examples that I'll give in the future in the upcoming slides. And of course, leading excellence in nursing education and research, just as sort of a global sort of mandate that we have as the Associations of Schools of Nursing, is everything that has to do with accreditation of programs. So this means setting certain standards for nursing programs across Canada, so that we ensure the highest quality possible of education for our nurses. So I've organized my thoughts around 3 big points. Hopefully I'll be able to stand on time. I feel I'm already close to it. We have an opportunity to be forward thinking. I think a lot of the times as organizations, we are caught in a reactive mode. And it's good. We need to be learning organizations. We need to be able to adapt to what is going on. But I think we have a really good opportunity right now to be intentional and forward thinking about the way we introduce or we address things like anti-racism, as well as indigenization of our programs. Really have that opportunity to be transformative leaders, in the sense that we are taking risks in making changes and engaging with certain criticisms to make our programs and curriculums better. Breaking down silos internally and externally. Again, this speaks to a little bit of the idea of having a united voice. So being able to work with other schools of nursing and elevate the level of nursing education, or the quality of nursing education across Canada. But it also brings us to start breaking down barriers. If we're looking across Canada, we're seeing some pockets of great initiatives where what has been done is really a conversation between sort of what has been traditionally siloed institutions. So how can we make sure that we have this conversation across different institutions? So I think the one that speaks very directly to Kazan is making sure that we are looking into or looking at education not as something that only transpires during the time within the academia, but really think about education as a continuum that is supported once nurses go into practice. And this is where, if you go on Kazan's websites and look at some of the work that we've done, everything that has to do with the residency program, supporting nurses in their transition to practice, and supporting also the nurses who are going to be working with nursing students or new grads in the work environment. So everything that has to do with preceptor mentor training. I also want to say, I think, obviously, with the idea of excellence in nursing education and our role here at Kazan, I think we have a role to play in the solution for ongoing health human resources challenges across Canada. I think we need to be able to be responsive to current changes in the profession and associated education needs. And we need to be centered on our mission. What does this mean is, as there is a push for more nurses out there, programs to do more with less, to produce nurses faster, I think as an organization, it's important to be able to stand and make sure that the quality of education is not in opposition to all of these things. It's really trying to see how can we keep the quality and ensure that there's quality education despite some of the challenges that we are seeing. Yes, sorry, I think I might have gone over time already, but I'm happy to answer a few questions. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech.
Thanks so much, JD. We will continue on, and for sure we'll have lots of questions and lots of dialogue moving forward. Leah Bill.
Good afternoon, good morning. I'm calling in from Saskatchewan, actually. I'm at a cancer conference here with FSIN. So I'll just proceed into the presentation. I acknowledge the territory, actually all of Canada, Indigenous peoples that come from the many territories from across Canada. So my presentation is on Indigenous knowledge and its basis within future nursing. Two very big questions were presented, which is how do we ensure that the engagement of Indigenous nursing knowledge is authorized for integration into nursing schools and still be protected, the intellectual property be protected, and the ownership still resides with Indigenous nurses or with knowledge holders. The second question was, how do we monitor, measure, and collect the data and information that belongs to Indigenous nurses or healthcare providers that are within the system, Indigenous healthcare providers, and assign the authority to practice all levels of traditional practices. So first of all, you have to look at the multi-directional model, the human being being the center, us as Indigenous people, as human beings, as in terms of a knowledge holder. So the first part is, if you look at education and learning, it's very different when you look at it from a Western lens compared to Indigenous learning and that model. Essentially, when you go out to learn within an education system, you're investing in yourself, your information gathering to help guide and direct you through whatever profession or life path that you're choosing to engage upon. The spirit within us directs the purpose of that engagement and connects all other elements for life integration and transference into the physical reality. So this is our understanding of what knowledge and education is about. What's a critical component, of course, is the ancestral connections. They're the stewards of ancestral knowledge as it pertains to our knowledge and the transference to new generations. So the connection to ancestors, to family is actually very, very critical in that procurement of knowledge and information and learning. The next part is connecting to humanity as a whole. So taking your knowledge and information and connecting that to humanity and utilizing that knowledge in life as you move through life yourself and in working with fellow human beings. Culture and belief facilitates the application of the knowledge and information. It facilitates the application of the diverse bodies of knowledge, and as you know, the diversity of Indigenous peoples within Canada and the world for that matter. So it's our culture and our beliefs that help and support the application of the knowledge that is received and gained through life. The body, the physical body, is the conductor of that knowledge bundle. So within your physicality, that body of knowledge is contained. And now if you look more into quantum physics and more into neurology and biology, actually a human being is literally its own library system. If you take a look at now the information and the research around trauma and the way we store knowledge and information linking back to just trauma. But it's not only trauma we store everything that we've experienced in the present life within our physicality. And so those accumulated experience become a body of knowledge. So when you take a look at this now from an Indigenous perspective, this is the way I see it, having been a knowledge holder and a teacher, traditional practitioner, but also have incorporated my life experience, the learnings that I've had as a traditional practitioner in nursing. I look at it from these perspectives. So my soul knowledge, the knowledge that I acquired prior to life and all of the many lifetimes that I have come into this physicality, that I've accumulated over lifetimes, and my ability to access that and bring it into the present time. The parents that I choose to have in this time were the foundation to make sure that I took whatever I have from previous lifetimes and bring it into this lifetime and to utilize it in a good way. And so what supports that is the teachings and the values and principles that they imparted upon me. The other real critical part is the relationship and the connection to grandparents. They provide the structural knowledge, and they're the teachers of how ceremony and knowledge and information from an Indigenous lens and Indigenous perspective supports the transference of that knowledge and bringing it forth into the world in a good way. The ancestors then, it is through our grandparents that we connect to the ancestors who have already archived and are holding in trust for us information and knowledge that we can utilize in present time. So that ancestral knowledge is a lineage of knowledge that goes back many lifetimes as well. So our capacity actually to access that is very real, but it requires the structural systems to be in place, for example, the ceremonies, connecting to the land base, etc. And then our connection and relation to nature. So the knowledge that nature has to offer us and that very intimate, close relationship that we as Indigenous people have talked about time and time again as a very critical and important component to learning and to also understanding our relationship, not only with the land and nature, but also with fellow human beings is critical. The Mother Earth and land, so the way she's positioned within our cosmology and our knowledge is really critical. And then the next one is the cosmology, so which is the entirety of how we understand and articulate knowledge and information as a whole. So the universal archive, which is everything in its totality and the origins of all knowledge and our capacity to actually access that. And then finally, you know, you look at this from as a body of knowledge that comes from many, many levels, and how can you take that now and answer the questions that are present there? So that's essentially, I think, the closing of my presentation. I was told I only had 7 minutes, so I'm trying to keep within that time frame. So if there's any questions, I hope that this was helpful, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this class.
Thanks so much, Leah, and we are pleased to have you. Yes, everybody's been challenged with that time limitation, but we had to make sure that that it was in a reasonable amount of time for people to watch. So thanks so much for condensing it as you did. I'm really excited at the end of all of the presentations to have our Chief Nursing Officer reflect on some of what we've said and offer her thoughts as she has a national perspective on all scopes of practice and all organizations. So Lee, we are excited to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and really want to just express so much gratitude to you, Judy, for Nursing the Future. First of all, it's something that we have talked about in the Nursing Retention Toolkit. Certainly something that I have been tuned into since very early in my career, and I'm really just so grateful for your contribution to supporting transition to practice through this masterclass and all kinds of other things that you do with Nursing the Future. So thank you. I want to acknowledge as well that I am coming to you from Toronto, Treaty 13 territory, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat people, who have all been the original nations of this land for time immemorial, certainly for longer than I can fathom, with tremendous gratitude for the land that I'm on and joining you from today. So I am going without slides just to talk briefly and reflect on all of the comments from my esteemed colleagues that you've just heard from. And certainly I will say that since I've been in the Chief Nursing Officer role when the position was reinstated in August of 2022, it's been the greatest joy of my tenure in the Chief Nursing Officer role to be collaborating with these organizations, with CNA, with CFNU, with CASN, with CNSA, and with CINA. All the C organizations, this is really the nursing leadership from across the country. And I couldn't do my job without close collaboration with all of the folks who you have heard from today. So I really am quite grateful to be coming together and talking about the current and future state of nursing. And what I've heard is actually alignment. You know, certainly there is a bit of a nuanced difference between the different organizations, but I hear coalescence. I hear alignment between all of the shared priorities and challenges. And I think this gives me tremendous optimism because we have very real challenges from a geopolitical context, from a political context. These are not existential threats. These are very real challenges. And certainly healthcare is really the essence of how you care for society, how you care for people in Canada. And I often say that the nursing contribution is really impactful in the very fabric of our nation. There's not a single person in Canada who won't receive care from a nurse at some point in their life. And so we actually, as nurses, have the ability to really shape societies, to shape the future of people in Canada. And we can only do so when we come together. And so I think the alignment that you've heard today in terms of, you know, current priorities and the need for collaboration is just so tremendously great. Um, some of the things that I think keep me up at night, and that I think are very real challenges, are the number of people in Canada who don't have access to primary care, the current and future climate emergencies, and nurses have such a key role to play. It really has been nurses who have been doing evacuations. This is something that we have no training and no competencies in. It's not something that we cover typically in nursing education. We may cover um, um, planetary health, but not actually the act of evacuating a health facility. And these are things that nurses have done in recent years. Pandemic preparedness, we need to be prepared for current and future pandemics. Changing and evolving models of care. We have seen, because of the workforce challenges, because of the challenges of the pandemic and the climate emergencies that we've seen such movement, I want to say, in models of care. We need to see more. And I think that there are all kinds of ways that we can optimize the role of nurses. Um, but this is shifting sand, right? In terms of the roles that nurses play and what nurses continue to do. And then, several of you also mentioned the impact of technology, AI, generation AI. And this is, I think, where we, really need to learn from our next generation of nurses. In terms of how that will transform care now and into the future. Certainly, there's lots of challenges when it comes to what patients want, need, and expect, but also the challenges inherent with some of the, not just the workforce challenges, but the fractures inherent in our health systems across the country, and the impact that that has on those who are most proximal to the point of care, which is often nurses. And so I think that I mean, I'm so grateful that we have Tiffany here, that we have representation from nursing students, because we really need to amplify their voices. We have so much to learn from them, and what they want for the future of our profession. But I also think that we need to think about the HHR crisis, the health workforce crisis, or talent management. How we are managing people will be the biggest challenge impacting the profession going into the future. If we don't get this right, if we don't actually think about retention, about how we're valuing. That was my timer to make sure I stuck to the time. If we don't actually think about how we're valuing nursing work, and the people who are providing the care, then we will never get out of this health workforce crisis. And that's why I think there's such a need to focus on nursing retention. So I'll stop there with great gratitude for all of my colleagues' contributions, and for their voices, really in really amplifying and uplifting the profession across the country. And thanks to Judy for inviting this conversation here today.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Chapman. And I know all of us on the call here today are so grateful to you, and how you've just grabbed the reins and spent so much time with all of us across the country, acting as our liaison with our federal government and being our voice in that way. So thank you so much, Lee, for all that you are doing. I'm wondering if I can start with Valerie. And Valerie, I mean, Lee was really talking about how important it is that we have our voice and that we find a way to build up and optimize the power of the nursing volume across the country. So do you think that we're unified, I guess, first of all, across the nation? And how do we optimize our voice and the power of one?
Thanks, Judy, and thanks to all my colleagues for your presentations. Always learning. I don't know how we can't be unified, to be honest. And I think we do such an incredible job at, at the team base level, whether it be with our nursing colleagues or interprofessional colleagues. And then all of us, as I think some of us have mentioned, have different collaborative initiatives that occur. But back to Dr. Chapman's comments about kind of these unprecedented times, the geopolitical tensions, and I think it's critical that we understand that as the nursing profession and family in Canada has ebbed and flowed structurally, we need to have the same voice about our impact and value in the system. And one of my biggest concerns, and I've just transitioned from being a CEO in a healthcare organization, is that nursing is an expenditure. And back to, I think, what Tiffany said about that negative narrative that happens. Like, when you go into a new profession, you shouldn't be hearing all the warnings. You should be hearing about the opportunities and the family and the supports and the collaboration and just the daily joy you face. I think I did, at least when I was a direct care provider and nurse practitioner as well. And I think that's where we need to come back together and make sure that as we're facing these times, that we continue to amplify each other, as well as respect the different choices nurses make along their careers. I have seen, one of the things I would say that has surprised me transitioning into a nursing leadership role like this again is minimizing or diminishing sort of even things like education. Like, at the end of the day, if we're a profession, we need nurses that get PhDs and master's degrees. We need clinical experts that actually mentor the next generation. And we need all of us to stay, I remember when I was in a fourth year student, Dr. Gail Donner gave me a chapter on shark attack, and it was literally Jacques Cousteau. And it was about my transition into the profession. And we are in control of that as nurses. So that's what we need to promote, I think, is from a collaborative perspective.
Thanks, Valerie. Linda, I want to draw you into this as well, because anytime we're talking about human resources and nursing resources, I think about you. What are your thoughts on how we communicate provincially and territorially as a nation about what we're doing and how we can optimize our human resource potential?
Well, I always chuckle when we say we should speak in one voice or uh, speak in one voice. I think we need a united message for sure. And I always remember Mary Ellen Jean, Dr. Mary Ellen Jean, when she left CNA, she wrote an editorial on how can nursing advance when we have 137 national voices, any individual who call themselves a national voice for nurses. And that always stuck with me. And it is, for me, making sure that we have the same message coming from different angles, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but where we go. And in this crisis, and Dr. Chapman calls it a challenge, it is a challenge, but it is also a crisis, because we're hearing what Tiffany is hearing every day. Oh my God, you're going into nursing, instead of, great, you're going into nursing. And we need to change the narrative, and it'll be up to us. But at the same time, we can't be blind. It is, I almost said a bad word, it is difficult in the workplace. Like, all of us around this table, maybe Lee still works at the bedside. I know Tiffany does, but not many of us are there at 2 a.m. when everything is going bad and nobody is supporting you. And then that's the focus. When we talk about human resource, that's the focus. And that's why my own board gets upset when I call, we represent the working nurses. And we all say, but we're working nurses too. No, I'm not there at 2 a.m. Might be on a plane at 2 a.m., but I'm not there at 2 a.m. holding the ship together. And when we start focusing on that investment, that's when it will turn around. And talking simple language, the premiers and ministers of health are starting to talk our language. How come nursing jobs, how come healthcare jobs are not the best jobs in our community again anymore? They were when I graduated. Everyone wanted to go work at Georges Dumont. Everyone wanted to go work at Dalhousie, my hometown, because that were the best jobs in our communities. We need to get back there.
Thanks. That's just, I mean, we're speaking truth, right? And they aren't easy issues. It's not like we can just say, oh, Linda, you can do that. You can figure that out. We need each other. We need all of us together working, as you said, Linda, on the same message, but coming at it differently. Leah, I'm wondering, you know, you're out there with our Indigenous nursing colleagues. What are the primary challenges that they're seeing, and how do you suggest that we help them?
I think many of the challenges that we're faced with, first of all, is we don't have the workforce in our communities. They're always underserved. There's not enough nurses to go around, and particularly Indigenous knowledge-based nurses who are Indigenous themselves and providing services. And this is the thing, our people feel that we may get better service if it's our own people that's providing the service to us. So that's still an ongoing challenge, like given that we only have something like 18,000 First Nations or Indigenous nurses serving right across the country. And you look at how many nations there are over 656 different nations within their own diverse cultural systems. So, and we still don't have, even though there was a huge investment years ago in trying to recruit more First Nations, Inuit, and Métis students into the health workforce. It failed. It just hasn't done what it's supposed to have done. So, and I think that that's an ongoing thing. And I hear what Linda and Valerie are saying about, you know, it's not, nursing is not seen as a safe environment to work in anymore. And so how do you change that? I have nieces that are in nursing. She just graduated. And one of the things I asked her, I said, so what's it like now? And she said, part of the biggest problem is you don't get management support. Oftentimes you're asked even to do, report things wrongly or not to be transparent and open, that kind of thing. So if you don't get the right support, even in the workplace, where you're encouraged to hide wrongdoing, it's very demoralizing. And it's, you know, you ask yourself, why did I choose to go into this profession where obviously they don't think about human beings first? They think more about how they can save their skins or how they can save money. It's not about providing a service and care to human beings. So I think that that's one of the, talking about being truthful, those are the things we need to address. So how do you strengthen nursing students to be able to stand up and give them those skills to say, that's wrong?
Thank you.
So that's my perspective on it. There's certainly all of these other dynamics that are going on. But number one, if you strengthen the individual and you give them the skills and the ability not to be popular, but to stand up for the people that you're caring for, no matter what race or where they come from, and you do the right thing, we will remain to be a highly respectable profession that people want to be part of.
That's a great segue, I think, for you, Tiffany, because I think about you so often, as you know, as you're going through your transition, that's first and foremost in my mind. And I'm wondering, what is it that you're hoping? And I know hope is not a plan, as we used to say in Saskatchewan. But what is your hope that you're going to find in the workplace that will give you that empowerment, that sense of value to the healthcare system that basically we're all talking about?
Yeah, that's a really great question. You know, I've only worked at the bedside for a couple of months, but that couple of months has already shown me a lot of the areas in which we are challenged and a lot of the healthcare crises that do exist. But it's shown me a lot of hope as well. One of the most beautiful things to me about nursing is the support between nurses. Nurses lift each other up. They keep each other strong, they help each other. And that's so beautiful to me, the connectedness that we have with each other. But you know, as somebody who's going into the workforce, what I really hope to see is that we can stand up for ourselves, that we can advocate for our patients, we can advocate for ourselves without fearing that we're going to be reprimanded. I want to see that there is value to our work, that we are valued by the hospitals, that we are valued by the government, that, you know, our patients value us. I do know that our patients care and they very much appreciate that we're there to provide that care to them. But we often feel undervalued by the organizations we work under, by the governments, by, you know, management. So I want to see that people value us to the level that we deserve to be valued. We provide very, very skilled care to people. You know, we take a lot of school, we have a lot of knowledge. And I think it's really important that the value we have is seen and recognized and compensated fairly. But yeah, I really want to see that shift in attitude, I guess, in the healthcare system, where we move away from, oh, you want to be a nurse, you're so brave, to that's a really wonderful choice that you've made. I hear a lot from people that that's how it used to be. You know, Linda said everybody used to be so excited to work in healthcare. It was like everyone wanted to work at the hospitals. And now people are afraid to get into nursing. And I want to see us shift back to this being a profession we're proud to be part of. I know I'm proud. I'm proud to be here. But I'm nervous too, you know, so I want this to be a safe place for us to be, and a place that we feel that we're valued and that we're proud to be part of.
Yeah, those are definite themes, aren't they, Tiffany? Is safety in every way. I mean, we want to, you know, being valued as colleagues makes us feel safe as well. And, you know, we always use that term, let's back the bus up, right? Let's go upstream a little bit. And so I'm going to bring you into the conversation now, JD, because having been an educator myself, you know, we have a lot that we can do at that level, at that beginning, to set the stage, to create the context of expectation. This is what you should expect as a nurse. That allows us to create something that might not be there that we want to be there. So that's a powerful role as an educator. Are we living up to that, do you think, JD?
I'm not going to fully answer, are we living up to that? But I hope we will. I'm just going to maybe briefly say, I think our organizations are nothing without its membership. So it's what is our capacity to be able to listen and hear what is going on in clinical, in the educational settings, to be able to inform. So be that learning organization. So that is absolutely key. And I'd like to pick up on some of what Tiffany was saying and what Linda was saying. You know, we can't be blind to what is happening. We can't be telling a story that is not true out there. And I think there's a lot of benefit in ensuring that students understand the context in which they're going to work. But I think there needs to be something a little bit more. And what is that is, I think it speaks to what Leah was saying a little bit early on, that those tools that we are giving students, right? And to me, that's what speaks to the politicization of students. So what are we doing to make sure that students can be part of the change? Because I think they're central to whatever's going to happen to our system. Sure, the educators are part right now, but as we work with the students, they are the people that will be picking up where we're leaving things off. And it's not just about teaching them what's happening, but it's being able to bring them in. So everything that's about mentorship is great, but it's also helping them develop those tools to make change. So Tiffany, I'm hearing you and I'm looking at what you're doing in terms of work with CNSA, you know, being able to bring a membership together, to talk together and create those political messages that are clear and will influence decision makers, this is also where these are part of the competencies that we need to build in students. Anyways, I just thought it was very inspiring, and it connects with what you just asked, Judy. So are we fulfilling? I think we're on our way to doing it, but it speaks to those connections that we're making and those competencies that we're building.
I'm going to invite Linda to share as well, but I just wanted to echo JD's comments, Tiffany. I was so proud to hear everything that you had to say. I was like, how could you just have graduated? I mean, you just have this incredible grasp on the challenges and the fact that we do need to be climate sensitive in the way that we target our initiatives. So Linda, a good time to bring you in.
Yeah, just to add, we and I did the same thing. We often talk about managers not supporting, but I think I can speak on everyone here. There are great managers out there. They, you know, like in any domain, I'm sure there's bad union presidents out there, but they are bad managers, and we give them almost too much attention. That should be an employer's attention. We should be able to repeat. But all those great managers that are doing everything at the end of their desk, you can't do proper retention, proper recruitment, proper mentoring if it's at the end of their desk, if it's not core to your job. And we need to put that back as a great, one of the number one asks of nurses is they want the old head nurse back. They want the old head nurse, that team leader that knew the unit, that knew what they wanted and had the time to do it, that didn't have time, wasn't spending in meetings or in budget. So to all those great managers, keep it up and we'll keep supporting you.
I want to reiterate that, Linda, because when I was managing in Saskatchewan, that was my greatest struggle, was that I was separated from my staff so often in bed meetings and writing policies, all of which is important. But I felt like they didn't have me. I didn't always understand what was happening because I couldn't have been on the ground floor. We're doing more with less, that sort of thing. So thank you for pointing that out. And I agree that we need to empower our managers and our educators as much as anyone else. And Lee, I'm wondering if I can pull you in here. We've talked about advocacy over and over again. It seems to be a thread through everything and everyone's presentations. What do you see across the country in terms of how people are advocating for the voice and the value of nursing?
Oh, that's my favorite question, actually. Advocacy is one of my favorite words. I mean, I definitely see we have an engaged workforce. We have a workforce that is very vocal about what they want and need. And I would say that, you know, I've met with nurses and nursing students and faculty members and managers in every province and territory across the country. And there's always been a willingness to come and talk to me, to share ideas, and really to share a hope for a better future. And so I see that as a very, very engaged workforce. Not to be Pollyanna at all. I know it's extremely challenging right now. It is a crisis, there's no question. But I see a workforce that has collective strength in advocating and in and willing to sort of share ideas about what would improve, what would make things better. And I think that we can work with an engaged workforce, right? Like we can mobilize that into action and change health systems and really change healthcare in Canada when we work together. And that's very different from having, let's say, an apathetic workforce, a workforce that is disengaged. And so I think, you know, the time is really ripe for us to engage the collective in advocating for the future of the profession, but also the future of healthcare. So yeah, advocacy is like I say this all the time to nursing students, the most important thing you can do is find your voice. You've heard loud and clear that Tiffany, understood that assignment in her nursing education program and is leveraging it as she's transitioned to practice. And I think there's so many amazing nursing students like like Tiffany, who have found their voice, and we just need to create safe spaces to listen to them.
Oh, that's a wonderful way to maybe segue to our final points here. And I think I'm going to start with you, Valerie, as the lead of our Canadian Nurses Association. What is it that you would like to see nurses in Canada do to optimize their own power, perhaps find that voice, or perhaps give others an opportunity to activate their voice? What would you say?
Well, I think in so many ways people that have just been speaking have highlighted. Again, the reason I had that slide about the 500,000 strong is I think we don't understand how much power we actually do have. And I mean, Linda, is just like a true master in how the union voice is leveraged to articulate simple messaging. Because I always joke that having worked as an ADM in a health system, that politicians have about a 5 to 10 minute soundbite. So you actually have to say it in a way they get it and it actually matters to their constituents. So, for me, when I think of the future and how we come together, it is just so critically important that we value each other in whatever role we're in. So, I've served in middle management and senior management and executive leadership roles. And I can't tell you a management team discussion I was not at where the same managers were feeling the same moral distress around the situation they're in. And I mean, I was a VP fighting for new budgetary allocation for nursing and or interprofessional initiatives, and I got shot down, say, by other professions or even the CFO. So I think we forget that regardless of what role we're in, at what part of the system we're in, that the more we better understand each other, it's the awareness of each other, our roles, our respect for each other's roles too. And one of the things that I do think is missing in nursing as a whole is understanding what we've all been talking about, those transactional competencies, understanding how to do. So you often become that, nurse where you're just a natural good leader. You get promoted to charge nurse, then you get promoted to manager, maybe even director. But do you actually have those core underpinnings of what great leadership is, other than maybe, some, if you happen to do a master's where you take a leadership course? And what's missing, I think, and would help all of us in whatever roles we're in, is that the nurse managers actually, with all of us supporting them and uplifting them, and other types of managers, use the evidence and their power to make safe decisions around staffing, and then also use the evidence for nurse-led or nurse-driven models of care that better meet the needs of Canadians. So that's kind of where I'll leave it. But we can't pit ourselves against each other. We have to be unified and lift each other up and help bring power that might be in the union or might be in the association or might be in a high performing organization, and continue to learn from each other to make sure we are not leaving any nurse behind and we are not having a certain percentage of the workforce leaving only because of the workplace conditions.
Oh, I really like that, Valerie, and thank you so much. I went right back to my office as a manager thinking, oh, how much I would have loved to have some of my nurses come into my office and say, you've got quite a job here trying to manage this whole situation. How can I help you with that? But I think that they look to me thinking that I had all the answers, and none of us have all the answers, but together we can do so much. So thank you very much, Valerie. Linda.
On the same answer, what I wish, I think, is the question of respect, but it starts by respecting ourselves. If I'd be able to speak to every nurse in the country one-on-one, would be like I'm looking at Tiffany right now, but Tiffany's heard it 100 times. is learn to respect yourself and learn to say no. We accept way too much as individual that no wonder the system is taking advantage of it. And remember why we went into nursing? It was, and I hate the hearts and all of that, don't get me wrong, but it was to do good. And today, to do good means more than giving the right medication, that giving the doing the right bandage or whatever you're going to do as a task. It's about that inclusiveness. It's about the inclusiveness of different cultures, but also the inclusiveness of your team. So for nurses is wake up, learn to say no, and respect yourself and your environment.
Yes, thank you. And I think nurses across the country feel that respect from you, Linda, and I'm sure that that inspires them whenever they're connected with you. Leah, I'm wondering if you could share what would be your message to the Indigenous nurses of Canada to help them understand their value and their voice? What do all of us need to do to make that possible?
Well, I think first off, from an Indigenous nurse perspective, we understand our value. The problem is we're not being heard. You know, when it comes to Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous nursing knowledge, and its incorporation into nursing practice, it's been a real struggle. And I recall back when I graduated from nursing school, first of all, I was trained as an Indigenous First Nation medicine person by my grandparents. And then they encouraged me to go and become what they referred to as a white medicine woman. So when I graduated from nursing school, I left that space feeling very dismantled, because the knowledge and the information, while it was very valuable, theory, etc., you learn all of that kind of stuff. But the problem was bringing the two worlds together that would support me as a nurse going out into the world, where I could stand up for myself and really incorporate these two worlds in such a way. And my understanding, and still is to be in service to humanity. It didn't matter who you were giving care to. And I think that that's what this is about. It's about understanding and knowing when we choose to walk this path of nursing, it's to be in service to fellow human beings who are requiring care. And yeah, maybe the hearts thing, that's one thing. But I think if you level it up to being in service, that's a very different perspective. And so for my colleagues, Indigenous or not, it's like when you go back and look at the slides that I presented, it's about we as human beings in the center and all of this knowledge and information that we acquire over a lifetime, but also have the capacity and ability to access the unseen knowledge that has been made available to us. See, that's what I think is lacking, is that we've become so entangled and immersed in theoretical information and knowledge that we forget to go back to the basics, go back to the base of who you are as a human being and all of the other resources that are around you. So then we become so dependent on an organization, an external organization to be our voice, an external organization to actually move things through, instead of going back. And your first and immediate resource is your own family system. And it contains all of those other pieces. So for us, we're still struggling to try to reassemble our family systems in a healthy way because of the way it got dismantled through historical colonial processes. And we're still working at that. And you know, building allies with, for example, Leah Chapman, Valerie, and Linda. We've been doing that for many years, but we still struggle to, balance and improve things. And this discussion here speaks to it. I had an admiration for nursing and all of the non-Indigenous nurses in their capacity, but I hear now you're up against a wall, and we're trying to find a way through that. And the only way to do that is to work together and to aspire back to those basic principles that our grandmothers of nursing held up really high.
Oh, beautifully said, Leah. Thank you so much for that heartfelt offering. Really appreciate that. JD, so now somehow we need to empower our faculty. I'm going to talk about the students when I go back to Tiffany, but a big part of our nursing education is the faculty that provide the students with that base of knowing themselves, believing in themselves that we've been talking about, learning how to push back in a respectful way. How do we do that moving forward?
Am I getting the more complex questions here? No, I'm kidding. I think everybody gets really great questions. So I think this is something that has been on my mind, and that we've been talking internally here, as well as with the rest of the membership. I think there's some great work that's been done. I'm thinking about, just recently, we collaborated with the Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association on the creation, on the revision of the cultural humility and cultural safety standards for nursing education. Great document. We are now sharing it with the rest of the schools. With any other documents that is being created, there's additional steps to make it, embedded, to give it a life in the curriculums, and make sure that then it transpires in the way that relationships are built, in the way that we teach, in the way that we practice, and so on. So there's these additional steps of translation of what it is that we build. I think that needs to be embedded in what we do. So and that has multiple. So there are multiple ways in making this happen. I talked about relationship building, but and meaningful relationship building. I think when I come back to, and I really appreciate what you said, Leah. In order for these things to happen, I think we need to make sure that the context is amenable for them to happen. So I think we need to be able to think about structure, affecting practices, affecting the ways that we relate. So it has to do with leadership or organizations, being able to take positions and follow them through, so that at the point of care, at the bedside, in the classroom, things can happen, things can change. So that means that there's an openness, and I don't necessarily talk about safe spaces, because yes, I understand people need to be safe, but right now I think we're in a place where people, when they're speaking up and they're courageous, they're taking a risk. So it's a challenging moment. We have to recognize that it's a challenging moment for people to be able to take that risk, and we need to be able to create those spaces. So it was a complex question, and hopefully I gave it a little bit of life. Yeah.
Totally did, JD. And I really hear this idea of, and I think Linda, I think you coined this, brave spaces, where we maybe feel a bit uncomfortable, but we're willing to move forward because we have the support of each other. And I think I've heard that really strongly throughout here. Advocating for each other is advocating for the whole. And that's a really important message for all of us to be putting out there. Tiffany, just before I go back to Dr. Chapman for a final word, what do you take away from this in terms of your own capacity as a newly graduated nurse to optimize and create that environment that you want to go and work in?
That's a really great question. So I think, I have a lot of takeaways from this. Linda talked earlier about how, as nurses, we all got into this profession to help people, to do good. But right now, in the current climate of nursing, doing good comes at an enormous personal cost. Um, but having these conversations and seeing these leaders that are engaged and want to make change and want to make the nursing profession better, and hearing that our voices are getting louder and louder, somebody's going to have to listen to us eventually. That gives me a lot of hope for the future of nursing. And I know that earlier, Judy, you said that hope isn't an action plan, but hope drives change. We don't want change. We won't make an action plan if we don't have hope for the future. And so this whole conversation has really given me hope that change is coming, that this absolutely incredible profession will become a place that is safe and brave and respectful and valued for all of us. So I'm really just so excited to see that there is so much engagement from all of these different areas of nursing specialty, and our 500,000 voices across this country are progressively getting louder, and eventually we will be heard. So that brings me a lot of hope.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Lee, you have the final word. What would you like to share?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think Tiffany could have given us the mic drop moment there in the last word. I would, and I want to acknowledge as well, and I didn't mention this before, that when I talked about some of the current and future challenges, I was remiss in not mentioning that I'm very, very grateful to Sina and to Leah for being here and taking time out of the cancer conference, and also just acknowledging that the collaboration with Sina and Kazan and with CFNU and CNSA is just so incredible, and CNA is so important in the spirit of our collective goals in this country and in the profession towards reconciliation, and knowing that Indigenous people are very underrepresented in our health workforce, and we need to do better. So really appreciate all of the knowledge that Leah is sharing today, and in joining this panel. I mean, you asked about advocacy, so maybe I'll end there. Nursing is really about making a difference. So Tiffany highlighted this when talking about change, and we make a difference. We make change all the time at the point of care, and often have to advocate for the patient. Sometimes we have to advocate for our colleagues, for systems change, for, if we need somebody to be transferred, if we need, a different intervention, different wound care, a system level change. And so I think that, making a difference can also be at a macro level, and making a difference in the lives of people in Canada and the lives of those we serve, but then also in the profession as a whole. And I think that, yes, I wrote this down when you said hope isn't an action plan. I think we, if we don't live in hope, what else do we have, right? So we do have to be optimistic that that the making a difference will be possible in the profession, that things will get better, that things will improve, and we need all of our voices, all of us working together and collaborating towards that optimistic future. Maybe I'll say optimistic instead of hopeful. And I do think that's possible when we all work together.
Well, thanks so much, Lee. And hope is absolutely essential. And I feel myself like, over my very long career, hope has been a bit like this, right? And I've needed to hear the kinds of messages that I heard today that re-engage my hope. And I think we're always on that little bit of a continuum between hope and despair. And it's important, I think, for us to continue to give these messages out to our colleagues about hope and about advocacy and about being brave and about being bold. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.